So 5 men who are accused of branding the word rat into another man in Dublin were back in court today, Eamon, attempting to get bail.
Yeah, so this is the latest step in this case involving Jason and Devon Hennessy and Ken Fitzsimons and his son, Dean. There is a fifth man who's been charged with them, but he hasn't made an application for bail. This is basically, the bail was refused last week in the district court, so they have the right then to go to the High Court to seek bail, which was what was going on this week. They were listed for hearing a couple of times in the High Court. There was a couple of kind of pre-hearing submissions made by both sides, and then the hearing went ahead then on Friday.
Yeah, and were the men brought into the court?
No, they were kept. They were done by video link from Clover Hill Prison, which is the remand prison, and the four of them were in the same room together. There was seats for them during one of the kind of the pre-hearing hearings in the week. The four of them were standing in the same room together. It was much shorter, and I think they had to adjust the camera so you could see all four at the same time. But this time there was chairs ready for them. They were sitting down. They seemed, there was smiles and handshakes. They obviously know each other quite well. And I suppose then when they got into it, really, it was all about the state's case, about what the strength of the evidence they have against them, and they get into the guard objections then separately as well. So
to the bail. So this is sort of one, like they were charged initially in mid-February. What are the offences again?
Well, all the offences come from the same incident in which a man was he was asked to meet one of the Hennessys, Jason Hennessy's family home in Sheepill Avenue in Corduff, and he went along, and Devon was there as well. And they were joined. This is all given in evidence by a detective sergeant, and they were joined by Ken Fitzsimons. And they went to an outhouse, or kind of a shed or whatever, an outhouse out the back of the house. And when this man, took out his phone, it was snatched off him. It's alleged that he was punched in the face first by Jason, then by Devon. And then it's alleged then that Mr. Fitzsimons took what was called a breaker's bar. It was explained in court that this is, it's a metal bar used for getting wheel nuts off a car, and that he was beaten with this, and it's alleged, that his injury at this included even a broken arm. He was hit so hard. So this went on for a while. Then they were joined by Mr. Fitzsimons' son, Dean, who arrived into the shed in an electric motorbike, and it's alleged that he drove over his legs. And then, of course, we got into the kind of more serious, the kind of the Section 4 causing harm as well. There was allegations that a kind of a homemade branding iron was used with the word rat. It was used to burn the injured party. And
a number of times, I think that's the state's case anyway.
Yeah, it's a number, like it's alleged that 6 times on his torso, on his body, also to the left side of his head, and then to the right side of his head. He was also beaten with the blunt side of an axe, and that went on for 20 minutes, it's alleged. So it was quite an ordeal, like this man was put through, according to the state's case. The alarm was raised then when he was told to get out, give him back his phone, and he drove to a relative's house. He was taken to hospital, and then he gave 2 statements to the guards subsequently, and that led to the arrests, led to searches and to the arrests of the 5 men, including the 4 today that were looking for bail.
And in terms of the defence case, the people representing these men, did they have say in court today?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, well, they were just trying to challenge. They were doing their best to challenge the state's objections. Usually, objections come under the O'Callaghan rules, which is it's if someone's a flight risk, i.e., they're going to run away or they're going to hide somewhere else. If they're going to do anything to dispose of property, so I presume that's if somebody's going to try and look for something that might have been used, that if they're trying to hide something from the guards, and then the third part of that is intimidation of a witness. So the state were making the point that just the nature of the crime itself, was in effect, an act of intimidation. Again, the defence were saying, well, there's no evidence of any, acts of intimidation or attempts to interfere with any witness since they've been charged. And so, that's, I suppose that's the way they go at it. There's other sections of the Act where, the state can make objections. Really, there were the guards were asked, are there any terms of conditions? In one of them, they're saying, there's €10,000 for bail for Jason Hennessy, and the guard or witnesses were saying, look, there's no conditions that could be imposed by the court that would alleviate my concerns or leave me satisfied.
Yeah, because typical sort of issues that people will be given bail for, around would be that they would sign on every day, or obey a curfew would be a very common one, that they would hand up their passport and give that surety. But obviously the guards in this case didn't. That said, they said that didn't meet their criteria. Obviously they have to go to the High Court as well for bail this week, didn't they? I mean, that's...
Yeah, once you're refused at district court level, like I'm not sure what the rules are. There's a certain amount of time that you can reapply. But certainly, once you're refused in the circuit court, if you have any chance of immediate bail, you have to go to the High Court to look for it.
Yeah,
and that's what that's what they were doing. It's what they were entitled to do.
And with all of the bail hearings held sort of together, there wasn't individual cases for each individual man, was there?
Yeah, I imagine it's unusual in that sense. Now that there were specific objections by the guards for some of the individuals for various reasons, and they were taken separately in the submissions.
Yeah,
but generally, the state more or less laid their case out as all four, because it's all part of the same incident, the same alleged incident where this man was, falsely imprisoned, which is one of the charges. In fact, the false imprisonment is the only charge that is common to all four.
Yeah,
like some have threats to property, threats to kill, and other kind of all surrounding this particular incident. So it's all from the one incident, which allowed them to I suppose present the case to the High Court in one sweep.
Yeah, and was there given further details? We obviously heard in previous hearings about how one of the men is alleged to have driven over the alleged victim on one occasion. Was it a motorbike or? Yeah,
well, apparently it was an electric bike. I'm not sure, but anyway, it was an electric bike. It was a Sauron, I think it was called. Yeah. It was the brand, and again, I suppose part of the part of the case that the state brings is to say, look, we have this evidence that we allege is going to kind of prove our case, and this particular bike is described by the witness, and the guards also gave evidence that there's CCTV evidence of this motorbike in the area at the time, also from one of the accused men's houses. So this is all part of kind of the picture that they kind of build up to, kind of as the judge put it, like, there's various strands which she decided, after hearing the arguments, more or less decided all these strands put together, a strong case, from the point of view why bail should be refused. And Judge Caroline Biggs, just said, she was quite satisfied with the evidence put before her and said it was undoubtedly refused, was her comment on it.
Yeah. In terms of the witness, who we haven't named, has been named in other publications, but we're probably not going to name him at this point. He wasn't present during this hearing?
The only reference to him, like in terms of his whereabouts, and again, it wasn't. I think it was deliberately not clear, but because it was asked, is he still in hospital or is he out of hospital?
Yeah.
So the guards gave evidence that he was still getting hospital treatment, but to be honest, like when the at one stage during the proceedings, like it seemed to be that when the state were making their case. And then even when the defence counsel or the counsel for the four applicants was making they were trying to fight the state's case why bail shouldn't be allowed. The four guys were on mute, and it was obvious to anyone in the court. You could see the video screen. They were chatting and laughing. And the judge at one point said to the counsel for the applicants, "Can you control your clients?" And then the sound came on, and the judge addressed them directly, in terms of the reasons why, or certainly that the case was against them, and explained in each case. Now, she did mention to them that if any of you want to leave, we can continue in your absence. And it was Dean Fitzsimons, he took advantage and said he was leaving and he was going to leave behind the others. The judge each time, when she was, directing her comments at Kenneth Fitzsimons, then, he would make himself known. Yes, Judge, that's me. Or sometimes it was quite inaudible. He made some inaudible remarks during it. Jason Hennessy, when he was asked to identify himself, made a salute.
Yeah.
So and that was kind of. They weren't called themselves to give evidence in court, which they're entitled to do. Their counsel said he wouldn't be calling them, just for whatever reason. I suppose in Ireland, bail hearings are limited enough. It's the Section 2 objections, and it's the O'Callaghan rules, and really that's it. Like there's not a lot of leeway.
No. Now, this is a kind of separate to the normal procedural stuff of the case. Did they speak about when it's likely to come back to court and the next steps, or is it a sort of totally separate hearing?
No, it's a totally separate hearing. Now the detective sergeant who was giving evidence was asked, he was asked about how long this case was going to take before it was going to come back.
Yeah.
And they were saying that, that the file wasn't complete, and when it would go to the DPP, and then they'd get it back in 12 weeks. So in the meantime, you'll have continuing remands in the district court. Yeah. Presumably these will be done out in Clover Hill District Court, done by video. Yeah. Presumably, if they consent to these remands, it can go for longer instead of every fortnight. It can be longer. Yeah. So yeah, you're looking at at least 4 months down the road before there's any significant development in the case. If there are any charges that might be dropped or any charges that might be added, for there'll be kind of an arrafment as such, and whether it'll go to the circuit court.
Yeah, it'll grind pretty slowly, I would imagine, given the fact the charges were brought, after a couple of days after the alleged offence occurred. So is bail, that's in the High Court, presumably there's a further appeal can be lodged against that decision, or is that it? Yeah,
there are other cases. There have been plenty of other cases where people go to the Court of Appeal to get your High Court bail refusal overturned, and in the past people have been successful. Yeah. But again, it can be down to very specific reasons, like whether or not a Court of Appeal mightn't agree with the original judge in accepting evidence that's put forward to the court. Is as simple as that.
Yeah. Also, I suppose that the passage of time, but it can ultimately, I think, go up to the Supreme Court as well. But I doubt that has happened on a too regular occasion.
And if there's any delay in it, I mean, this is again which came up in the hearing today. Would be the length of time something is going to take. That if you're looking at, it's going to be a year before somebody goes on trial, it's unfair to keep them in for that length of time. I mean, and it's a matter of fact, like that we've seen it in plenty of cases where people have been charged with, technically more serious offences that might attract a life sentence, such as murder, get bail. That's not uncommon.
Not uncommon. I mean, especially if it's gone really slow, people wouldn't be held in forever. We'll continue to follow this case as it comes through the district court and then further on if such is the case. So thanks, Eamon.
It's always a pleasure now.
Robbie Lawler was out of control.
This is Double Cross, the murder of Robbie Lawler.
It was going to be an all-out war with him in the middle of it.
A Crime World special investigation podcast based on my new book, Web of Betrayal, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.